G'day everyone, and welcome along to a Brighton therapy session for the Toon Under pod this week. Dimi is joining me to have a bit of a cathartic rant about that Brighton performance, well, the Newcastle performance against Brighton. But if you do feel sorry for us having to put up with this on a Monday night, having to relive the horror story again because it was Father's Day yesterday, so we couldn't do it. Look, give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube, and if you're listening to us on audio podcasts, drop that five-star review and drop some feedback for us. We actually like that, and it also helps the algorithms keep us plodding along and make us feel like we're not just having a rant for our own sakes at this point. Dimi, not a great weekend in terms of the Newcastle performance. Terrible result for us. Social media is in meltdown yet again over our lack of wins on the road and lack of performance and goals at the moment. How are you doing, and have you recovered from that dire sort of Saturday night, Sunday morning game for us?
I've recovered, but it's not a good feeling losing 3 in a row, especially from what we've been used to. So, I mean, we do know this feeling because we were rubbish for 25, 30 years of my life. So it's not unusual, but it's still not nice to continue losing games. So hopefully it's only a short blip and we can get back on track.
Yeah, look, I mean, hats off to Brighton. I think they fully deserved to get the 3 points. We just didn't turn up. We failed to have our usual performances that we came to sort of know and love from last season. Look, I want to start off by saying 3-1. I personally think probably flatters Brighton a little bit. I don't think our performances were great, and I don't have a problem with us losing. I have a problem with our performance in general because we'll get to it. I think it was very lethargic. But like, did you see the game as this like kind of Brighton controlling possession as we know that they like to do? And is it that, Newcastle were very sloppy, conceded a couple of really, really dodgy goals at the back? I mean, we'll get onto the actual goals in a minute, but Brighton seemed to just capitalize on our mistakes. We created chances and failed to take them. It could have been very different. Is that how you see it as well?
Yeah, we definitely didn't play well, and we were well below our normal levels, but the possession thing doesn't really worry me because Brighton do that to most teams. I mean, they had 80% of the ball last week against West Ham, and West Ham won comfortably. So the possession thing doesn't really worry me, and they didn't really create chances. They weren't opening us up despite their good football. It wasn't as if they were having loads of chances and Pope had to make loads of saves. It was really every goal was an individual error from us, which makes it all the more frustrating. And It's not something we're used to because since Eddie's come in back in, what was it now, 2021, November, December, or around that time, October, we haven't really had many games where there's been countless individual errors. We were used to that under Bruce and previous managers, but we were solid at the back, and that was our foundation to, first of all, stay up, but second of all, improve where we were. We're the best defense last year in the league, or the least goals conceded. So it is frustrating to concede goals like that, and it definitely 3-1 probably did flatter them overall, but I don't think we deserved anything in terms of the way we played from the game.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, we'll touch on the first Brighton goal, but it came almost after, like, we had a clear opportunity to open the scoring. Isak was put through on goal. Beautiful ball by Bruno. Why didn't he take it first time? Why did he wait so long?
Well, great question. That's $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, it was a slight bit of hesitation, but you can probably, I think, because it was so early in the game, he's probably not cold and not sort of out of touch. It's that sort of chance that if it falls to him maybe half an hour into the game, maybe he's had a touch of the ball and he's got his sort of feet wet, but the chance did come for him, and it did look like it was going to open up one-on-one. He just hesitated, and the defender, to be fair, did well to cut across, and that was a frustrating miss. But I think the one a few minutes later that we'll talk about probably as well. That was the bigger chance, and for someone of his quality, I was quite shocked that he didn't even get on target, to be honest.
Yeah, that this the second chance that he had, he literally just skied the ball over the goal. It's like you expect him. It was not a clear cut chance, but it was cut back to him. And given some of the goals that he has scored, you expect him to at least be hitting the target with that, not
Yeah.
off target the way he was. So yeah, for me, he just seems like he's maybe snatching at stuff at the moment. He's not getting a lot of chances in games because of our bad run of form. But he does look a little bit off the pace maybe as well. He doesn't look quite as blisteringly quick and like as sharp as what we were used to towards the back end of last season. Maybe is that fair to say from you, or do you see him sort of other aspects to his game that you think he's just struggling with at the moment?
I think it's a product of the way we're playing, to be honest, because I think he's a player that needs to get on the ball and sort of run at defenders. He's not your old school back to goal centre forward, and he needs to be involved in the play, and he ideally as well needs space. And the way we've been moving the ball the last couple of games, especially in terms of the slow movement, and teams have been sitting a little bit deeper against us, not giving us that space that Villa did suicidal in game one
Yeah.
where they were playing that high line. So that's probably contributing somewhat. And like you saw the chances that he had a couple of half chances, which maybe Isaac in prime form takes at least one of those, and maybe the whole game changes. And who knows, we're probably not talking about a 3-1 defeat. So he probably is not at his absolute sharpest that we've seen in the past, but I think it is a product of the way we're playing and the lack of ball speed that we've got at the moment, which is, I think, really hurting us in attack.
Yeah, it almost feels that there's a little bit of a lack of confidence maybe going through the side, that there's a little bit of nerves creeping in. And I think we've seen through some of the midfield play, especially where we're getting a lot of under hit passes, kind of flags a little bit with me. I'm not, you can tell me what your feelings are on this, but to me, if you're under hitting balls that much, that often, it's kind of like a sign of nerves and not really confident in being able to just ping that ball around.
Yeah, I agree. It's a sign of lack of confidence. It's also lack of sharpness. It seems that we're just slightly off, and the passing isn't crisp. The combinations that we saw at times in the first game against Villa, we just haven't really seen since then. And obviously, you've got to take into account we've played the champions who probably win the league again, Manchester City. We've played Liverpool, who were fighting for the title besides last season, have been fighting for the title for the last 3-4 years, have won a title themselves. And Brighton at their ground, where we've been poor for a long time. The only time we've beaten them there was that Mo Diarmi worldie off his heel. Besides that, we haven't got a result there. So I mean, there is context to all these results and performances, but it does show that against the better teams at the moment, we're just not as sharp as we need to be. And
Yeah.
like my good mate Jose Mourinho says, in these games, in these big games, Champions League games or top of the table clashes, it comes down to small details. And if you don't get the small details right, you're going to lose.
How much of it do you think is down to that? We played brilliantly well last season. We played brilliantly well when Howe took over in our kind of relegation threatened season that we managed to stay up. But those 2 seasons, it was very much us against them or us against the world mentality almost. We had our backs to the wall. It was like, let's just throw everything at this and see what happens almost. And we've got nothing to lose. Is there a sense of expectation really kind of hampering the progress? So this is coming direct from a quote from Lee, by the way. Expectation is the enemy of progress. That was his revelation quote earlier on today. So I promised him I'd squeeze that in. But it is sort of like that, almost that feeling of there's this expectation around the club now to be able to go out and win these games and be able to go out and compete with these clubs. Do you feel that the players are almost buckling under that expectation, the weight of that?
I don't think we're buckling. I mean, buckling to me means that we're getting completely destroyed in these games, or in the last 15, 20 minutes, we're just falling to pieces and conceding late goal upon late goal. I mean, obviously we did concede those 2 goals against Liverpool, but I don't think anyone would have said after the first 45 minutes that we were buckling under the pressure of the expectation. And I mean, we've talked about that game already. We can talk about it till the cows come home. We didn't win, but I mean, the chances we had in that game, we should have won the game. And who knows? Again, we win that game, and we even with the Brighton loss, the reaction probably isn't the same. It's the fact that the Brighton loss came after the Liverpool game where we did a lot right, but threw it away essentially. So I wouldn't call it that we're buckling under the expectation. I think expectation is good. You need to have that expectation to be a successful club, and you have to go through that progression. And we for years had zero expectation. The only expectation we had was to finish 17th and not get relegated. That was the maximum expectation we had each year. And now things have changed and we've made Champions League and pressure is coming, but that's good. I think that the players will rise to that. It's just like I'll refer to probably a few times in this pod. There is just small details at the moment that we're not getting right, and it's compounding to bad results against great teams.
Well, let's go through so some of the extra chances that we had in that game. Miggy goes through down the right. He doesn't actually cut back onto his left for once. He puts the ball through on his right. And it's what everyone's been asking, he has to have a right foot. So he's gone down, he's caught everyone out, and the defender gets a very lucky deflection that just sort of bobbles up to the keeper. Joe Linton threw in the box. Gordon plays him in, I believe. He has a nice little 1-2 with himself in his own feet. And then shoots just narrowly wide of the goalpost. And then Gordon, again, put through late on in the game, and how the hell he hasn't got that on target. It wasn't under pressure or anything. Beautiful ball by Anderson, I must say. I've been really impressed with him in his cameos so far this season, and we'll get on to what changes we want to make in a bit. But yeah, the ball that ended up going through for Gordon, he's got to do better than that, and you would expect him to as well. And it's all these little things that just aren't clicking for us, and it makes a difference at this level, and that's what you're saying. I totally agree. So, but let's look at the Brighton goals. Brighton 3-0 up before we pull a late one back through a nice bit of individual brilliance from Wilson. But the first goal for Brighton is literally just a calamity of individual mistakes from pretty much all of the back line and some of the midfield. We give the ball away. They get a shot on goal. Nick Pope palms it away straight to a Brighton player. They come back at us. It then comes back in. It comes back out again. Then rather than actually make contact and clear the ball, Tonali has this kind of little flick at it, makes a tiny little bit of contact. Again, straight to a Brighton player. It comes in via a really fierce shot. Nick Pope can do nothing but palm it, literally chest it straight to Ferguson for an easy tap in. And it was literally just this one after another. Everyone just kind of panic stations kicked in. Nick Pope was probably the most to blame for that last bit, but there's so many little individual errors that have led up to that goal. Is that how you're seeing it as well?
Yeah, it's almost comedy capers, to be fair. I mean, the clearance from Pope was shocking. I was surprised a Brighton bloke didn't have a shot straight away. He sort of hesitated because he was probably a little bit too far out to shoot, but then Trippier dives in when he probably didn't need to dive in. Then Pope makes a decent save off Matoma. The ball sort of loops up. Tonali just sort of flicks his boot with nonchalance and not really what you need to do in that situation. And then to compound that, he doesn't close down the shot, which we'll talk about what we did later in the second goal. But we didn't close down the shot. We said, "Yep, have a shot, go for it, free shot, a goal." It was a nice strike, but it did fall straight to Pope, and Pope, for whatever reason, decided to chest it and not try to catch it or just tap it away. And Ferguson couldn't believe his luck, and he's thinking, "How good's this?" And he taps it in. It was a calamity of errors, and that's the thing. I mean, what coach can legislate for those sort of mistakes? I mean, from your experienced players like Trippier and Pope, you're not going to expect those sort of mistakes. And it doesn't matter how many coaches you've got or how good the coaching is, individual errors are going to conquer all coaching. So that one is purely down to us and nothing to do with how good Brighton are or how well they pass the ball.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, any time in that sequence of play, one player does the right thing and manages to get that ball away or under control or out of danger, and that chance is snuffed out. And
we're not asking for much either, and we weren't asking for much. It's a simple
booted up
really.
Field. Yeah, exactly. And it's those, and it comes down to that. It's really frustrating that they've not really created a lot of clear-cut chances. They had one, I think, before that where the ball was skied. I think it was Ollie Marsh, and he's basically had a bit of a worldy effort, but it went pretty high and wide. It wasn't really troubling Nick Pope, despite the commentary doing their usual Brighton love in for most of the game. But you know, all you're asking for is like somebody to put their foot on the ball at that moment and just calm things down, clear it, get rid of the danger. And we just didn't do it. And that's the frustration for me, is that it could have been prevented. And it's like we've conceded a very, very bad goal because of the just shambles at the back, and everyone was kind of like panic stricken. The second goal for Brighton, look, Ferguson is clearly in form. I'm going to ask you this now because it's been bugging me. How much do you reckon Brighton are going to cash in Ferguson for?
He's got to go for 9 figures, surely. I mean, if Casado goes for 115,
exactly.
I reckon the bidding should start at 100, and Brighton's going to be licking their lips. I mean, the kid looks like an absolute animal, and he's only 18 or 19 or whatever he is. He definitely looks like he's destined for top quality football for a long time. So fair play to him. But I mean, if we go through the goal, is again we invite the attacker to shoot, which is a huge bugbear of mine, and one of Keegan's good mates who used to play for Melbourne Victory used to do this all the time, and he used to just invite pressure and invite the shot. He sort of used to stand off and jockey the attacker, and I hate when defenders do that. Why would you ever invite anyone to pick their spot and shoot? Put a little bit of pressure on him.
It wasn't like there was even just like, oh, we're not like closing in really tight to him. Dan Burn ran off in the opposite direction to try and cover the wing or something, and then literally just sort of a wide gaping goal. And it's like, please have a shot and see how you go. And I don't care who you are, you shouldn't be getting that much space in the middle of the park, that within shooting range of goals. So again, very, very poor decision making at the back. I mean, just a sloppy goal to concede. The
it was
third,
from nothing too. The goal
and
was from nothing. I mean,
and it was from nothing.
Despite all that, again at the start of the second half, despite their possession, I mean, I think we even started the second half with more ball than them.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
They hadn't looked like scoring that second goal. I mean, we did look a bit shaky at the back, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But we did look shaky, but they didn't look like creating, or they hadn't created to that point a clear-cut chance. And that one wasn't a clear-cut chance. It was Dan Burn backing off and saying, have a crack. And I want to talk about Pope as well. I think he has started this season up to his high level from last year, not great. And I mean, it was a great strike, but I've always said from that far out, if you're going to get beaten in your bottom corner, I think you got to look at the goalkeeper as well to concede from that far out in the bottom corner. It wasn't as if it was top corner, top bins. Yeah. Can't stop that. It was, I think for someone as good as Pope, I think he'd be expecting to, if not read the ball, maybe get a hand on it, or at least make a better attempt. Almost like a
slow reaction. Slow reaction time from him. Yeah. So the third and final goal for Brighton came about by, again, just letting Ferguson sort of have a shot from, not very much pressure on him. But Fabian Schär, again, shout out to Lee on this one. He was a little bit frustrated, shall we say, at Schär's lackadaisical closing down on this one. Turns his back and gets a really wicked deflection. As much as Nick Pope maybe could have done all right for that bit, a little bit better on that second goal, he didn't stand a chance on the third one. It was literally he was running off in one direction and the ball deflects off into literally the exact opposite corner, and it was like, well, take that one on the chin. But again, it's come from like this cheeky little like deflection that's wrong-footed the keeper from a poorly closed down bit of defending. But again, it's that frustration where, like Miggy has a deflection and it goes bobbles up straight to their keeper, it's those little bits of luck and little bobble bounces. And I mean, last week against Liverpool, their first goal bounces off Botman's arse straight into the line of the attacker.
Yeah.
It's all, everything that can go wrong for us right now seems to be going wrong for us. I don't feel that we're playing as badly as necessarily all the results are letting us sort of believe. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, it's disappointing. But that third one, just lack of closing down, would you say? Again?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're inviting the shot. I mean, I always, again, like I said it before, you never want to invite a striker to have a crack at goal, because that sort of thing can happen. It could hit someone's ass or hit their leg and the ball can go in. It's always, when we're attacking, that's why you always want to say, look, have a shot from out to the box. You never know. You might get a deflection. It might come off someone's knee, or you just never know. So, I mean, it just summed up really how we were defending for the whole game, to be honest, in terms of the individual errors we were making, and anything Ferguson did, it was going to go in. So that was that was frustration, and I think Lee's right. I don't usually agree with Lee, but Lee is right with Cher's lackadaisical effort. I mean, when you turn your back as your defender like that, that's for me is not on, and we caught what we deserve there.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, a little bit of frustration, I think. But look, we pulled one back. Brilliant little bit of solo run from Wilson. He did finally get that little bit of luck going his way. Too little, too late for us, unfortunately. But it bobbles off their defender as he's running at them at pace. But take nothing away from his finish. That was a cracking little finish for him, and it's what he can do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a nice goal. I think the defender will be a bit disappointed for him to somehow squeeze through that challenge. It wasn't as if it was a blinding through ball by Longy. He sort of just lumped it forward and said, go chase that. And he did chase that, and the ball fell for Wilson, and he finished it, which was good. But yeah, too little, too late. And I don't think many Newcastle fans were celebrating the consolation goal in the 95th minute.
No. One thing I do want to point out, though, from that, or get your opinion on, is do you see Wilson starting the next game with Isak on the left, Gordon on the right, like we kind of finished that game? Because it seemed to kind of almost have a little bit more drive about it than maybe we did in the first half.
I don't think so, to be honest. I wouldn't be dropping Isak yet. I don't think he has been to blame for any of the attacking struggles in the last couple of games, and he's still, for me, the best attacker, the best striker at the club. So I think he needs to play. And obviously Wilson got his goal. That's great. He should be confident going into the next game, regardless whether he starts or not. So I'd be happy enough to stick with the Isak up front and keep Wilson hungry on the bench.
No, that's fair enough. And look, I think if we put things into perspective, and I know that our good mate Dex was pointing this out to me on social media when I said, look, we are literally 1 point worse off than this time last year, but he's turned around and said, well, yeah, it's one point better than where we were under Bruce. So I think the difference for me, though, lies in we've played 4 of potentially the top 6 teams so far in the league this season. We've had the on paper, like statistically, the toughest start to the season out of any club in the Premier League. And you look at the likes of, say, Tottenham, and look, we can wax lyrical about Ange Ball as much as we want. West Ham, they've turned things around nicely. They've kept hold of some players. They've got a really good deal for Rice and spent that money quite well, I think, on some of the new recruits for them. But they've both had very easy runs this season so far. Now we've got a chance to kind of start to pull back some of those points that we should be getting. And I think if we get to the point where in 3-4 games time, we're still struggling, then we can hit the panic button. I'm happy to do that if we're losing to the likes of Sheffield and Burnley and things like that. If we're losing the games in the circumstances we are by not playing well, yes, but by sloppy goals or individual errors, things that can be worked on in training. I'm happy that it's against the likes of Man City and Liverpool, because those are the games that if you make that small mistake, you're going to get punished, and we've got to cut that out. But I'm not pushing the panic button yet. I know plenty are. Your thoughts pretty much the same. Like, look, let's wait and see how we go.
Yeah, absolutely not pushing the panic button. I mean, it's 4 games into a 38 game Premier League season with European football around the corner, so there's definitely not the time to push the panic button. I think it's the accumulation of the Liverpool sort of last gasp loss against 10 men that I
It's
think
almost
that
how we're losing rather than that we're losing. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and if you look at the last 2 games in isolation, we've probably single-handedly contributed to the losses both games. I mean, Brighton did play well, and Liverpool took their goals well, but I think all 5 goals we've conceded in the last 2 games have probably been from our mistakes, or definitely been from our mistakes, and definitely preventable. It's not like we're getting played off the park and you put your hands up and saying, yeah, we're nowhere near this level.
Yeah.
It's not that for me at all. It's we can control a lot of the mistakes that are going on at the moment, and I think that's what Eddie Howe would be saying to the team. He'd be saying, look, we're the masters of our own downfall at the moment. We are giving stupid goals away. We're not being clinical, and small details in good competitive matches against top 6, top 8 teams, you're going to be punished. So it's a good lesson for us, and I think I'd much rather learn the lesson now in the start of September than learn it in maybe towards the latter half of the season when there's not that the games now aren't important, but when it gets to more the business end of the Premier League season, and hopefully we're still in Europe as well, that's when you want to make sure that you're learnt from your mistakes at the start of the year.
No, that's fair. So for me, so far this season, other than maybe the Villa game where we definitely benefited from them, as you said, suicidally playing this high line against us and allowing us to run in behind them. We obviously need to find a way past teams that are going to sit deep, because as Klopp's proven now, as Pep proved against us, as a lot of teams are and did last season to some degree, if they sit deep, they cut out those half spaces or whatever the latest buzzword is for the tacticians out there on social media land, the fact remains that we struggle to break those teams down. And as you said, it's like, look, you have those shots from outside the box. It could go anywhere, and we don't seem to do that, but we're not pressing enough anymore either. There seems to be this kind of like shift in philosophy about how we're going to approach these games. And do you see that? Do you see us not pressing as much? Do you think that is a cause for concern? Do you think that is literally probably down to Eddie Howe focusing on the fact that we've got so many more games this season?
I think you're right. It's a bit of both. I think if we play at the intensity that we played every game or most games last season, the players will be cooked by Christmas. And you got to remember, last year we did have that mid-season break virtually where the players could recoup and recharge the battery. So it's not practical that we're going to be playing with that fireball intensity for 90 minutes, but we need to probably be doing it for more of the game than we are at the moment, and we just got to be picking our spots. And I think that's the issue that I see with our pressing. We're not picking the right times to press, and we are being a little bit not scared of the opposition, but a little bit too hesitant, in my opinion, especially against Liverpool last week. We sort of were shitting ourselves that they had Salah still on the pitch, and they had Nunez, and they had Jota. So we saw that quality. We thought, oh shit, if we get this press wrong, we're going to be one-on-one in our defence, and we could be in trouble. And not to the same extent against Brighton, but we probably thought as well, with the pace that they've got up front, and with Dan Burn and Cher and Target and Trippier, who aren't the quickest, we didn't want to really expose that back four to their pace. So I think we're going to pick our moments, and I still think that intensity and that high press has to be our identity at the moment, because we don't have that number 10 superstar who can unlock the defense with the magical ball. We just don't have that player.
Yeah, he's playing for Tottenham, unfortunately. The elephant in the room, let's address it. Midfield 3, before the season kicked off, we had Joe Linton, Tonali, and Bruno as our midfield 3, on paper looking like a world-beating midfield. It doesn't seem to be clicking. Safe to say that. And what's your thoughts on why?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a lot of debate about our midfield and how it's not clicking, and Bruno's got to get dropped, or Tonali was the wrong signing. We've wasted money on him. There's a lot of chatter on the socials and out there in Newcastle land, but I've got probably a slightly different take. I don't think anyone was saying after the first game, that our midfield wasn't working, and it wasn't those three who were going to be a key part of the team. So that's point one. Point two, we've played Manchester City game two, who are the best team in the world by an absolute mile, and specifically to combat our midfield three, they played an extra player in that midfield who usually plays as a centre back, a Kanji, and he specifically played in the midfield to break up and to match up our midfield. So that's how much Pep Guardiola, who probably is the best manager in the world, respects our midfield three. We look at last week against Liverpool, and again, the first 45 minutes completely dominated the game. Szoboszlai and their midfield, the Endo, the new Japanese signing, he was nowhere near it. We dominated. We just didn't take our chances. So, I mean, yeah, we weren't great against Brighton. The midfield has looked a bit sort of out of sync, but I don't think it's as bad as what everyone's making it out. And I don't think, like with all these conversations, I don't think context is ever provided, and sometimes context is very important and tells its own story. So I do think we need to adjust. Not the starting three, in my opinion. I think we need to adjust their roles and how we're deploying them, because it looks like at the moment they're all sort of confused or not sort of sure what role they need to do. I think that needs to be ironed out. But in terms of breaking that midfield three up and saying, oh, Bruno has to be on the bench, or we have to put Longstaff in. I mean, all due respect to Sean Longstaff, but there is no chance in this world that Sean Longstaff should be playing football for Newcastle over Bruno Guimaraes or Sandro Tonali. He just does not have that quality. And if we want to be a top 4, top 6 team, we need to accept that and say, yeah, Longy is a Newcastle lad, he's a local kid, but let's be serious, he's not at the level of those other two. So I think it's still a work in progress for us, and I think Eddie's just got to maybe sharpen up the positioning of the midfield three to make the most of it.
But I think the thing is, you've got Bruno and Tonali who can probably both play that pivot role, and I think they're being asked to do that at different moments of the game. To me, it just looks like they're not quite on the same wavelength yet in terms of being able to kind of cover each other and read each other's games. That's only going to come with game time, only going to come with minutes on the pitch together playing. I know people have criticized Eddie Howe for making substitutions. Tonali has looked good. I think he's actually looked really good in some of the last few games. He has been hooked early. The problem is like, yeah, even though he might be playing well, we don't have all the numbers that Eddie Howe has off the training pitch in terms of fitness levels and how much he feels he can get out of those players. He may be looking at their bleep tests or something and going, well, look, you know what? Bruno's fully up to speed in terms of fitness. He can see out the full game. Tonali is still struggling. He's getting there. We're working on his fitness, but we still can't expect a full 90 minutes out of him. We don't know that. Nobody out there knows it. So, you know, there is that tempering of criticism on the substitutions because we don't know where everyone is fitness-wise. We don't know what the general plan is in terms of being able to sort of keep that momentum going in the game. At the end of the day, nobody was complaining because we made substitutions against Aston Villa. Because we ran out, you know, Barnes comes on, sets one up and scores one. So no one's going to complain when it goes right, but when we're up against it and it doesn't quite come off, everyone's suddenly this tactical expert. So I think temper those expectations maybe a little bit out there, guys, and we'll see how we progress in the next few games. To me, it's almost like we're at times in the game, we do look like we're trying to push the game. We're trying to force things a little bit too much. There are definite times, and I think look, we've made these passes against Brighton that have been cut out or fallen short. I mean, Trippier gave the ball away in a really bad position at one point in the Brighton game.
Yeah, in the box.
Yeah, and it's like you're thinking, like, why have you done that? But on another day, he may be seeing this pass and it comes off and suddenly we're away and we're breaking and we score a goal, you know? So it's those little 1%ers that we're talking about, those small details. And again, it's like the Liverpool, the Liverpool winner. That came from Bruno supposedly giving the ball away. Yes, there was an easy ball back to the defender, but he saw a killer ball through that probably releases somebody to go through on
Barnes.
goal and score the winner. Yeah. So, you know, it's those little details, those little minor, like sort of, you know, a half a foot either side, and suddenly we're away. Otherwise, we get the ball cut out. Is that kind of how you see things as well, where, you know, we're just not getting that little killer ball? Because, you know, there are times where Brighton thread that ball through at the weekend, and then there are times where we try that and it just say clips a defender, or like just goes the wrong side of somebody. It just doesn't seem to be going our way at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. It's the sharpness and the sort of that final little bit that we're not doing right, and the small details, like you said. And it sometimes football can get overcomplicated, and people can overcomplicate it with statistics and analysis and a lot of sort of exterior things. But sometimes when you don't get those big moments right, and if you make an individual error, or if you don't do a basic right, like Trippier misses that pass in the box and almost we concede a goal from that, sometimes that is what decides games. And some games aren't decided usually by 3, 4, 5 goals. It's small margins a lot of the time. So you get the small margins wrong, you're going to lose. I think in terms of what is hurting us at the moment with sort of ball progression and the speed that we're playing, and I think out of defence we seem to be holding on to the ball, I think,
Yeah.
a little bit too long. And I saw it last week against Liverpool with 10 men. We sort of thought, we have the extra man, let's just keep the ball and make them tired. But we were just keeping the ball going side to side. We weren't moving the ball forward. And I think we did a little bit of the same on Saturday night or Sunday morning our time. And it was sort of burn to share, share to burn, burn to Trippier. And by the time we moved the ball forward, Brighton are set up well, and
Yeah.
there's sort of no opportunity for us to hit a pass. And I think that's a lot of our issue at the moment in terms of attack-wise. The ball speed has to improve. And I think Fabian Schär, he showed us last year that he can ping a ball, and I haven't seen him ping many balls this season for whatever reason to the wingers, and he hasn't even tried. He tried one ball, I think, over the top to Joe Linton, who almost got through in the first half, but we didn't seem to be trying those diagonal balls enough. And I think sometimes we need to take that chance with the ball in terms of moving it quicker from back to front, just to keep the defenders honest.
In terms of the transfer window, there's been a lot of criticism because of the apparent lack of centre back cover. We've gone out and paid a substantial amount for two very, very promising sort of potential future superstar fullbacks in Livramento and Hall. Not seemingly the priority positions that we needed to strengthen. To me, this is I know from interacting with a few of like the North American followers from the NFL, there's this saying, playing chess, not checkers. And to me, that's kind of what we're doing. It's all about the long-term gain. And if you get the chance to sign somebody of the caliber of these two players, do you go, well, look, we're not going to get those now because we need to go out and get a centre half in case we get injuries, and then suddenly they're not available the next year, or they've gone somewhere else. Do you see that as a problem? I mean, I think we're all in agreement that we're probably a centre half short for the season in terms of that cover. But do you think we've made any mistake in getting those two players?
Absolutely not. I mean, again, I think fans are being a little bit prisoner of the moment. We're into game 4 of potentially a 50-plus game season. There's going to be plenty of games for Hall and Livramento to play, and I think a lot of fans are going to be a lot happier seeing those two boys in instead of seeing your Manquillos, or all due respect to him, but your Manquillos, your Crafts, your Targets. We are upgrading that depth, and it is important to do that. And I think for the price tags that were being quoted for centre backs, I just don't think we were in the market seriously enough to spend 70, $80 million on a centre back. I think we said, look, we've probably got money for one big money signing, which was Tonali, and
Yep.
I don't think the club expected to sign Tonali, but we did, and that I think is going to turn out really well for us. But people criticising the Hall and the Livramento signing are only criticising it because we've lost 3 games in a row.
Yep.
I'll go back again to the Villa game. No one was complaining Livramento was on the bench game 1, and no one was complaining that Hall was going to be a bench player up until we've lost the last couple of games. So
Yeah.
Context is important. And I think those boys will get their chances this season, especially Hall, once he gets, like Eddie Howe says, once he gets acclimatized and sort of into the Eddie Howe way. I think he will be pushing Dan Burn for a start at left back, and I think that'll be a good change for us to see.
Yeah, I've seen Matty Target come in for a bit of criticism on my brief forays into social media today. Do you think he actually did much wrong, or was it literally just we've lost, we've made mistakes at the back, he's the new one in, and it's an easy scapegoat?
Yeah, I don't think Target really ever does anything wrong. He's that old school 7 out of 10 fullback, and he's not going to blow you away with his quality or sort of do anything that's going to stand out. He's sort of does his job most weeks when he gets called upon, and I think, yeah, I don't think he was to blame, or I don't think he was massively at fault at all for most of the defending, to be honest, on the weekend. I think he was fine. It was just, again, when we lose, everyone wants a scapegoat. It's
Yep.
Burns' fault, it's Tonali, it's Bruno, it's Howe, it's someone. There's got to be someone to blame. So he's just probably another on the long list of someone to blame for that result. But I don't think he was poor or anything like that. I think he's a good squad player, and that's
Yep.
what he'll be, I think, this season. Someone we need to come in here and there, and I think he'll do a solid enough job for us.
Right. Well, let's not ramble on too much. I think we both got a little bit off our chests tonight. One last point, and I'm going to let you have a little bit of a chat on this one. Where to from here? What do you see us having to do to kind of turn things around?
Yeah, so obviously we've got the international break now, so that I think that for us has come at a good time. I think I mean, even if we did have a game next week, you'd say, great, we've got a game next week. But I think that the pressure, not the pressure is building on us, but we probably need some time to take a deep breath and say, all right, we've played 4 games, we've played 4 really good teams, we've got 3 points. Okay, it's not great, but let's now move to the second stage of to the next stage of our season. I think it's going to be a big week when we come back because we've got Brentford, we've got Milan away, and then we've got Sheffield United away. So we've got 3 very important games straight off the bat after the international break. So I think there's nothing that shows me in the last couple of years under Howe that he doesn't know what he's doing, or he doesn't know how to fix these problems. I think he clearly does know what he's doing, and he clearly does know how to fix the problems. And I do trust the players and the leadership that we have in the locker room, and the sort of the character that we've shown over Eddie's reign, that the players aren't going to be resting on their laurels, or they aren't going to be sort of not taking this bad run of form lightly. I think they're all going to be making sure every stone has been turned to make sure we're going to be a better team by that Brentford game. And I think a win against Brentford, which obviously we're all hoping and expecting, I think a win against Brentford will definitely ease some of the nerves that the fans have about how this season may go. And I think that it might just calm at least for a few days until the Milan game, it will calm the social media talk about digging out our own players.
Yeah, look, hopefully it's enough time to just kind of hit that reset button. A lot of I'm sure Eddie Howe will be going over all of the match footage from the last couple of games with a fine-tooth comb, looking for those key moments, those key things that he can change. We know he's going to do that. We know he's going to work hard. We know he's going to sort of do his homework and look for ways to keep improving the team. I assume he would have much preferred to have had a lot of his senior players stay with him to work on stuff on the training ground. Unfortunately, we are getting to that point now where a lot of our players are good enough where they're going to get international call-ups. So a lot of the senior players that we would probably want around are off with their countries. but it maybe is a good thing as well. It gets them away from the Newcastle atmosphere. It gets them into another setup and a chance to just clear their heads a little bit, and then come back. And as you said, with three massive games when we return to football. So look, we'll call it there. Look, fingers crossed we managed that win against Brentford. We'll be back during the week, sort of with a couple of podcasts in the international break. We're going to try and do a bit of a recap, maybe of the Amazon Prime special, the 4 episodes that everyone was glued to, apart from them spoiling the Adidas promo.
Yeah.
And then look, we may end up like diving in and doing a bit of a deep dive into some of the way the goals have been conceded, or things that we may need to do differently, and we'll see what we can come up with. So stay tuned. As I said, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content that we're throwing out there. And thank you very much, Dimi, and hopefully we'll be a little bit cheerier the next time we do a match review.
Cheers, mate. Let's hope.
Take it easy.